What are we talking about today?
We are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy today.
Mm.
I've been looking forward to this one.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite Marvel movies.
If this is one of your favorite Marvel movies, I think you're gonna be blown away because the amount of comic book connections in this movie is actually staggering. I did the show notes early yesterday. I'm glad I did. Because they jammed a ton, a ton of comic references in here.
Yeah.
So I know normally what we do is you give me questions and then I give you answers.
hmm
But because of the amount of comic references, I thought it would be better to list off uh, all the characters, and then we can like go back and forth with all of them and talk about the connect. Like, so all the characters in this Guardians of the Galaxy are from the comics, all of them. But
Okay.
they were changed and moved around a little bit. So there's stuff to talk about as far as who they are in the comics versus who they are in the movies. So what do you think about that today?
So you want to hit the characters kind of up front?
Yeah, we get the characters up front, and then I'm sure you're gonna have questions afterwards.
Okay. All right. So I've got the cast pulled up. I just kind of want to run through that
Oh, great.
because
Yeah,
so I'll go through all the cast and then we can hit each character one by one. But
sure.
this is like a star-studded movie. There's a
Oh yeah,
lot of names in this.
yep.
So we've got Chris Pratt as Peter Quill or Star Lord.
Some kind of weird controversy because he said stuff online about something I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't really follow him.
Nah.
Trying to separate the art from the artist there.
Yeah.
Um, Vin Diesel as
Yep.
Groot,
Yep. I am Groot over and over and over again.
and
Good
and
movie,
then
good
We Are
money.
Groot once.
Yeah, making good money. Doing that.
Right. Second time he's done a voiceover or voice acting like that. He was also the voice of the Iron Giant, which had
Huh.
a similar vocabulary.
He's a very well-rounded actor. I don't think he does action movies and stuff, but I think
Right.
that he's actually a really good actor. And
Yeah.
if you like Van Diesel, watch a movie called Boiler Room.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, called it's before he got real big and muscular. Called Boiler Room,
Oh,
and also
okay.
he was great in that Steven Spielberg war movie that I just totally forgot the name of it. What was the title of it?
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, he was in Saving Private. He
He
was
was in
great.
that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He got killed early. Mhm.
I did not know that. I'll
Yeah,
have to check that out sometime.
that's a great movie. I might watch it again soon. Keep
All
going.
right. Next up, we got Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket, Zoe
Awesome.
Saldana as Gamora,
Yeah,
Dave Bautista as Drax.
great.
Uh, I'm hitting the big names. We
Yeah,
got Michael Rooker as Yondu,
yep.
Karen Gillan as Nebula.
hmm
She's
She's
not
from
that big of a name, but
she's
she
from Doctor Who
was.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
she's from Doctor Who. She was
Mhm.
the companion of Doctor Who for
Well, she's no.
a
If
couple of
you're
series.
that's millions of fans. So if you've watched
Right.
Doctor Who, you're going to see this movie, which is like brilliant on Disney's part. It's brilliant.
Yep. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this guy's name right. Uh, Jamon Hunsu. He plays Korath.
hmm I always
John
liked him
C.
in movies.
Riley is one of the Nova Corps, Corpsman
Yep.
Day.
Yeah, he's fun.
Then we got Glenn Close as Nova Prime.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. I've still got a couple of big names. Benicio del Toro.
It's Collector. Yeah.
He's the collector. Yep. And then Peter Serafinowicz, which is another Nova Corps officer. He's a
hmm
fairly well recognized name.
Who played Ronan? He's a big name.
Ronan is Lee Pace. I don't really know him. Do you?
No, but we get Thanos. What's his name? He's famous.
Yeah, Thanos isn't on the top
This
cast list for this, but
he's
that
got
is
he's got his voice.
the guy from the Goonies, isn't it?
No, it's a famous dude.
Yeah, from the Goonies, isn't it?
I guess
Hmm.
he's famous for other things besides the Goonies.
Yeah.
What's his name? He's great. He's great in it. Hang on. Josh Brolin. Duh.
All right, click on him. He was in the Goonies, right?
Man, I haven't watched the Goonies in a billion years. Uh, I guess so. Josh Brolin was in the Goonies. Yeah, he
Wasn't he?
was. What was
Yeah.
his character in the
He
Goonies?
was the older brother.
Ah,
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that you remember him from the Goonies. It's like the Goonies. Josh Brolin. He's also in that Dead. He was also in Deadpool. He was Cable,
Yeah, right.
which
But
is
I think
sh-
this
it's a
movie was his I don't wanna say resurrection because I don't think I think
no.
he just kinda retired for a little while or something. I don't know that
No,
anything
he's
bad
been doing
happened, but
movies. He's been doing
he's been doing
movies.
them all along?
Yeah, he hasn't been doing big movies, but yeah, he's been doing stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is his entrance back into, like, high profile movies, I guess.
No, he did Sicario in 2015. He did No Country for Old Men. He's been doing stuff.
Okay,
Josh
alright.
Brolin's pretty famous.
Alright.
Let me keep this in because
I
I don't
thought he
want
stayed
Josh.
on the down low for a while.
No, Josh Brolin was a big deal. He's a big deal. He
I
did
oh,
he did Perfect Thanos. I think he did Perfect
are you
Thanos.
sure none of these movies you said took place after Guardians of the Galaxy?
No Country for Old Men definitely happened in 2007. Uh, so yeah, so okay. Let's just say Josh Brolin has returned to the spotlight in Thanos and Guardians of the Galaxy. How's that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so that's like those are the big names in this
Great
movie.
cast, great
Yeah.
cast, great cast. And as a side note, without this cast, this movie wouldn't have worked because this movie's crazy. This is actually funny. When I first started dating my wife, we I invited her over to watch this movie, and it's a common joke that she fell asleep during this movie.
Wow.
And then when she talks about this movie, she's like, that movie sucks, and
Yeah.
all those creatures, I don't want anything to do with them.
Uh,
And it's always so I'm always like, hey baby, you want to watch Guardian of the Galaxy? And she's like, no, that movie's terrible. And so I kind of want her
Has
to
she
get.
ever stayed awake through an entire playing of it?
No, she doesn't even like Marvel movies. I think we went to see Captain America: Civil War in the theater
Yeah.
because like she went on a trip or something and came back, and I wanted to wait until she got back to see it. And then because it was a big movie, I wanted to see it. And then we saw it, and she was like, I fell asleep. Like this is a massive action movie, and she's like just nodding off. So I've kind of
Yeah,
given up.
lots of loud noises.
To be fair, once she showed me the movie Rope, and I fell asleep doing that. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But okay, let's keep
Wow.
going. We got a lot to talk about. So but yeah, the movie's full of comic book goodness, and but I think a lot of the connections you'll be surprised about the different things going on with it.
So who are you gonna tell us about first?
Star Lord, very first Star Lord. So Star Lord is a relatively new-ish character, kind of newish. I think it is 2004, so relatively new. Okay, and in the movie, there in the Guardians of the Galaxy, the very first one, there's reference that his father is someone kind of powerful. That's how he survived holding the power gem.
Mhm.
In the movie in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it's revealed that his father is Ego, the Living Planet. In the comics, his father is a Spartex Empire Lord called Jason. And I have to kind of lay down some stuff for the listeners and you. So you watch Star Trek.
A little bit.
Okay, in Star Trek, though, you have the Milky Way galaxy, and only part of the Milky Way galaxy is colonized. So it's only like maybe I think 10% of the Milky Way galaxy is actually colonized. The rest of it, nobody knows what's going on with it, right? And you have the alpha, beta, gamma, and delta quadrants.
Yeah.
In Star Wars, you also have like one galaxy, right?
Mhm.
And this is something Marvel does not talk about, and they didn't mention this in the movies or anything like that. Technically, in the Marvel universe, there are multiple galaxies. So, for example, there is a Kree galaxy, which is I think it's Alpha Centauri. I could be wrong. There's a Milky Way galaxy that is technically controlled by the Spartex and the Bandu aliens. Or humans are in it, but we don't control the whole galaxy. There's a Squirrel galaxy that I believe is Andromeda, but I could get that wrong too. So technically, it's like you have these multiple galaxies in the Marvel comics. So like you have to think of it as like 6 or 7 different galaxies. And it's not uncommon for people to travel through these galaxies to different parts of the universe. The universe is quite massive in the Marvel comics, and so intergalactic travel or extragalactic travel is quite common.
And they
So
don't really talk about how they do that, I'm
they don't
sure,
want to
right?
talk about that because it's so massive.
Yeah,
That's huge, and
right.
I mean we're talking like trillions upon trillions of people, trillions upon trillions of different people. And I think in the movies, especially, they did a good job of just kind of like fudging that. Just saying,
Mhm.
"Hey, this is space. We're in space."
Right.
But technically, it's we're talking like the span of galaxies in comics. So
Huh.
we can just ignore that for now. We don't have to get too deep into that, but I do want to kind of make it kind of clear. That's going to come up in the rest of our discussions. But
Okay.
the Spartax is spelled Spartax. They are a galactic race that controls the Milky Way galaxy, I believe. And
Hmm.
Peter Quill, that's his father.
Okay. In the
But
comics.
yeah, in
And
the
then in the
comics,
movie, his father's Ego, the
Ego,
living planet.
yeah, we'll talk way more about him when we get to volume 2 of the movie.
Okay.
Some cool stuff with Peter Quill. In the comics, he's kind of a jokester, but he's not goofy in the movie.
Mhm.
He's pretty serious. His claim to fame was he was in the Annihilation comics that we've talked about before. And in Annihilation, he and Nova were like some generals that helped in the war. And it's a long story, but Peter Quill was a big part of that. And then in the Annihilation Conquest, he formed the Guardians of the Galaxy in that comic, and then there's other stuff going on too. I don't
Is
want to
he
get too
also
deep in
known
that.
as Star Lord in the comics?
Yeah, but they don't. Yeah, but it's not a joke. Like when they meet him, they call him Star Lord. And in fact, someone said, "Hey, you're Star Lord." He's like, "Don't call me that. My name's Peter Quill." Because like there was a time where he did call himself Star Lord, and something went wrong, and I think he killed because of his actions. A whole plant died.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I remember
Yep.
that. Like he's like a whole plant, and he didn't talk about it. And so, in the comics, he's very gruff. He's very like he also has a cybernetic eye, so he has a fake eye. I think he gets rid of it at some point or something like that, but he does have a fake eye. At some
Hmm.
point, the comics and the movie kind of slowly coalesce, but he's never as goofy or as jokestery as the Peter Quill we see in the movie, and not at all. In the movie, he couldn't lead a horse to water, but in the comics, he's a pretty strong force to be reckoned with.
Right. Okay.
Next up is Gamora. All right, so Gamora. I had to spend like 20 minutes on her because when I was reading the comics, I do not remember any connections to her and Thanos. That doesn't mean that there weren't any. It just means that there were no real strong connections.
Huh.
They have retconned Gamora to make it so that Thanos was her adopted father,
Right.
because of the movie.
Mhm.
But from what I remember in the comics and from the show notes too that will be posted, Gamora was part of a group called the Infinity Watch. So way back in the day when Thanos first got the Infinity Gauntlet, a guy named Adam Warlock was had a key role in stopping Thanos. And at the end of the Infinity Watch comic series, a guy named Adam Warlock got the Infinity Gauntlet and had control of them. He decided that he was too powerful to have them, and he took each gem and gave them to a person. So he gave one gem to each person, and he had a secret six person that nobody knew who had the reality gem, and it was the Infinity Watch. And these people were tasked at guarding the Infinity Stone. So each person had a stone, and Gamora had one of those stones. So it's Gamora had a stone, Drax had a stone, a little weird dwarf dude had a stone, Adam Warlock, of course, has stone, and who else has? Two other people have stone, but I don't know who they are. I'll figure out
Okay.
who they are.
Probably
And
not in this movie.
no, they're not in this
Yeah.
movie.
Okay.
And their job was to guard the stones. It was a pretty interesting series. It was like space stuff. It was pretty fun. At some point, Gamora, the stones got lost, or someone took them, and then Gamora was in the Annihilation comics again, and she led a group of warriors to fight the the um the Annihilus army during the Annihilation Wars. And then in the Annihilation Conquest, which was the sequel, she gets infected with something called the Phalanx. I'm not going to get too deep into this because it's a long story, and it's a really good story. If you really want some good comic book reading, get Annihilation, the first series, get Annihilation Conquest, and then get the Nova series connected to it. It's so fat, it's so fun. Gamora is infected. She tries to kill a bunch of people. She ends up turning good, and then she joins the Guardians of the Galaxy after that. And her job was to basically just protect the galaxy, kind of. And that's it. But there's been a lot of other stuff since I've stopped reading comics as much. So there was a point where she went after the Infinity Stones for herself, and she changed her title to Requiem. And she also killed Thanos in the comics. So I think
cool.
Thanos is dead in the comics.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
In the movie, Nebula is closely tied to Gamora. Can you talk about her next?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nebula's actually kind of fun. So she's actually doesn't have a whole bunch. So I read a lot about Nebula when I was reading comics. So when I first
are they sisters?
No, not originally. And originally, it was thought that Nebula thought originally that Thanos was her grandfather. That was her original thought. Okay. It was not confirmed, and Thanos did not accept her. So at some point, Nebula was trying to be a bad person to get Thanos' attention. And at some point, there's a really interesting Avengers comic where she and someone called the Stranger are involved together. It's one of my first comics I've ever read. It was actually the comic I read that made me want to read comics. And in it, she gets this super powerful thing, and she destroys half the universe. Way before we even see Thanos, she does it with this powerful thing she has. It's weird. So then Nebula does some other space stuff. Doing the Infinity Watch comics, she is by Thanos' side, and Thanos has turned her into like a husk of a person. She's like all skin and bones because he just doesn't like her. And Thanos is like, at one point, this is a pivotal, this is actually really important. I need to make this clear. In the Infinity Watch, at some point, Thanos is super powerful, but he's distracted. And Nebula touches the Infinity Gauntlet that he has and takes it from him, and she has it. And that is the only reason why Thanos loses, is because he turned his back on Nebula, and then she took it, and she became as powerful as he was. But she didn't know how to use it. So then Adam Warlock was able to take it from her, and that's how it ended. If Nebula wasn't there, Thanos would have kept the stones and would have stayed powerful.
So that really damaged relationship between Thanos and Nebula.
They didn't have a great relationship.
Yeah, anyway. that carries over to the movie.
Yeah, but that's the thing. In the movie, I was hoping that would happen again, and we do get that. We do get Nebula portraying him, but we don't get it the way I thought we would. I really thought there'd be a scene where he has the Infinity Gauntlet and she would take it from him. Yeah. Because I thought that was going to be her role the entire time, but instead they do a little other things, and I guess that's fine. But I was really looking forward to Nebula being a little bit more awesome than she was in the movie. She's still awesome, but I was looking for her to be more awesome. But in the comics, they have retconned her to make it so she is Thanos' adopted daughter. They retconned a lot to make sure that there's some cohesion between the movies and the comics. One thing that is definitely not true is that in the original comics, she did not have cybernetic implants. I actually had the original comic where she got cybernetic implants. After the Infinity Watch comics, she was kind of damaged mentally, and they gave her implants to kind of help her. But there's a couple different things going on in Silver Surfer and everything else. But anyway, at the end point, back in the 80s, back in the mid 90s, everybody got cybernetic implants. It was really cool to have a cybernetic eye and arms. I don't know why, but they gave everybody that for a long time.
Peter Quill had a cybernetic eye, and Nebula had a bit of everything.
Yeah, I don't really know why. But Nebula was that was it. After the Infinity Watch, Nebula wasn't a really big character that anybody cared about until the movies. And then after the movies, so they kind of brought her back to make her kind of more relevant, which I thought was good. But yeah, Nebula and I have a very interesting history because she was in the first comics one of the first comics that I read as a kid. So I always remember her.
Huh.
Then we got Drax. Wait, did I go to? Oh, we switched. Okay, we got Drax. Okay. Did you read any of the show notes?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you read the Drax?
I did not read any of the links because I wanted to
Okay.
remain,
All right.
as I usually am, ignorant of the comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Drax actually has a human name called Arthur Douglas. so
Oh
so
wow.
so the story is that Thanos was flying over Earth for some weird reason, and Arthur Douglas and his family saw his spaceship, and Thanos was like, "Oh no, they saw me," and he killed them.
Wow.
Yeah, but then Thanos' mentor, his father. So okay, so in the comics, Thanos' home planet Titan is our planet Titan.
Or
That's
the Moon Titan.
the Moon Titan. Yes, on Jupiter. So
Okay.
we have a group of people that are like they are external lights. So you remember when we talked about Eternals?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they are Eternals kind of. So they are a group of superpowered people that live on Titan. And Thanos was one of those people. So Mentor, didn't like that Thanos did that, and Mentor saved the daughter of the family, and she ended up becoming Moon Dragon, which is a superhero person.
Okay.
Really interesting. Moon Dragon is famous because she's a lesbian, but she was a lesbian in the comics from the very beginning. She's always been a lesbian, and that was back in the 80s.
Hmm.
So that's always been really interesting. She was like, "Ooh, the lesbian character." That's pretty much it. But at some point, Mentor took the dead body of Arthur Douglas and reanimated him and made him into Drax and gave Drax one purpose, and his purpose is to kill Thanos. So Drax's one purpose in the comics forever has been to kill Thanos. Now, over time, he gets distracted with his purpose. He loses his mental state. He becomes kind of becomes mentally unstable. He doesn't have the same kind of he's like a childlike person for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Drax actually spends some time in the microverse. So if you like Ant-Man,
What's the microverse?
do you remember in Ant-Man 2 where at the end
Oh.
he goes into that little space, and it's like
Yeah.
to get he like miniaturizes so small that he's in a different kind of reality.
Right.
Like that's the microverse. Like technically, he spent time like where in Ant-Man 2 that woman that Jan, I think her name's Jan. I haven't watched it's a long time. Anyway, she like spent time in that universe for a while. That's the microverse. So technically if you shrunk small enough, there's an entire universe in our universe, and it's not as other universes within universes. So
Okay.
it's the whole thing. But he
Yeah,
spent time in the microverse, which I thought which is a whole thing. But
so since he
eventually,
started out as a human from Earth, I'm assuming he didn't have like blue skin or whatever, and
mhm,
all those
mhm.
crazy designs on him in the comics.
There's a picture of him playing a saxophone. If you want to see a picture of him.
Okay.
Eventually he has a resurrection. He is killed, but then he comes back to life, and he looks like the Drax you and I know from the movies now. And the
Okay.
movie Drax is based off of this Drax, and this Drax is cunning. This Drax uses knives. He's not as powerful, but he's smarter and he's more cunning.
Mm.
At some point, Drax, he's part of the Guardian. No, at some point, Drax, in Annihilation, the original comics. So in the Annihilation comics, Drax is like, I'm gonna go kill Thanos, and he goes and he kills Thanos again. So Thanos has been killed a few times. But after that, he joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there you go. So the
You know
Drax,
something? I just realized. Who did you say is controlling the Milky Way galaxy?
the Spartax,
Do
and
they
the
have any members on the Guardians of the Galaxy?
no.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, okay, I'm gonna blow your mind. In the comics, the Guardians of the Galaxy they actually span the universe. So, so they don't guard a galaxy.
They don't guard the Milky Way galaxy.
They actually guard many different galaxies.
Okay. All right.
It's a fun name, Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's better to say than Guardians of the Universe.
Yeah, alliteration helps.
Yeah, so that's Drax. Then we got Groot, And this I didn't know this. Groot's pretty much a brand new character. He was created in 2007 as well. And Groot's, I mean, there's more stuff about Groot in the movies than there are in the comics, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. So there's not much about Groot, except in the comics, he does say more than I am Groot. He says other things, but it's the same kind of idea. He hangs out at Rocket Raccoon, and that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah, good enough. It's actually pretty simple. I think that they did a really good job in the movie making Groot a really popular character.
Now that you've talked about Groot, we've got to talk about Rocket next, and I want to know about Rocket's origin.
Ugh,
Like, what happened to him?
All right, so Rocket Raccoon is this is straight from the thing. It's a genetically cybernetically enhanced raccoon from the Milky Way galaxy. So apparently his origins, like he's from a group called the Keystone Quadrant star system. I'm not sure what that is, but apparently someone figured out a way to create animals and cybernetic hybrids, and that's how they created Rocket Raccoon. He was created in 1982, so he's been around a little bit.
Who did you say did that to him?
The Keystone Quadrant. It's like a group of people in that quadrant, and they create alien humanoids, and he's an alien humanoid.
Okay.
Let's see. And I think he was part of a group called the Loonies at one time, which is actually kind of weird. I reckon I knew who Rocket Raccoon was in the when I saw the movie trailer, and he's had his own comics for a while. But he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. So he was actually had his own comics in the 80s, and then no one cared about him until the Annihilation Conquest series, and then they kind of brought him back. And that's where he became more of an interesting character. And then, of course, when the movie started, he became like big. So when the Guardians of the Galaxy movies came out, they took the Guardians of the Galaxy that were from Annihilation Conquest and used them as a template. But they weren't the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Now I'll talk more about that a little bit. But yeah, Rocket Raccoon doesn't have a whole bunch pre-movie, and then after the movie came out, they of course made his character far more interesting.
Right.
What else? Talk about Groot. Ronan. Ronan's an interesting one. I know in the movie that Ronan's a bad guy. In the comics, he's also a bad guy. But in the story, the Annihilation, he was actually a good guy. The Kree were at war with the Annihilus army, and so we were rooting for Ronan. And he was actually a really cool character. He did some really cool stuff in that, and I hate that he was a villain in this movie. Because the Ronan that I liked from Annihilation was really awesome. He was really neat. But
didn't you say that the Kree were like a friendly race to the humans, or not? It's like a species.
So well,
it's like a friendly species to the humans.
I wouldn't say the word. I think I misspoke with the word friendly. Not as hostile, right? Okay. Like they were just like. When they hung out with people, when they hung out with humans, they didn't view them as a threat, or they didn't try to kill them every 5 seconds. Like the Skrulls usually did that, but the Kree didn't. But the movies have definitely made the Kree into sort of like the super race, the super bad guys. So I'm not sure how they will play it out, but we can talk more about that when we watch Captain Marvel. But Ronan's, I think the Ronan that you see in the movie is representative of the Ronan that we see in the comics. The hammer is the same that he has, and his power levels are also the same. So his power levels are pretty high. He never had connection to Thanos. He never had a powers Infinity Stone. None of that stuff. They never went to war with the Nova Corps. None of that stuff. So that wasn't true. But apparently he's dead.
But he did cruise by Earth and kill Drax's family.
No, he never did that. And apparently Drax was killed at some point, so he's dead now in the comics.
Or no, that was Thanos that did that? Who did that?
Thanos was the one that killed Drax's family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ronan didn't do that.
Okay, yeah.
But Ronan's been around for a long time. He's been around since 1967. He was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, so he's been
Wow.
around. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
one. He's a true believer. He's been around for a while, and his main title is called Ronan the Accuser. So just to help people understand, in the Kree system, Ronan would be considered like a judge. So he would be the one who would show up and be like, "I accuse you, I judge you." So he's like a space cop basically, but a little bigger than that.
Mm.
But at a certain point in the Annihilation comics, Ronan actually became leader of the entire Kree civilization, which is pretty awesome. What else? He fought the original Captain Marvel for quite a while. He was part of the Kree Shi'ar Wars, stuff like that. Yeah, and there was a sub story. I never read this comic, but it's called Maximum Security, where apparently he went to Earth. He was going to make Earth a prison planet. So he came to Earth and said, "This planet is now a prison planet for all space aliens." Of course, we didn't like that, but I thought it was kind of fun.
Right.
And that's it, really.
Okay.
But the version that you see of him in the movie is not the version really of the comics, and it kind of it's a shame that we have this like typical villain dude who just wants to kill a bunch of people when the version of Ronan that I liked was far more interesting and nuanced.
Yeah. What about Yondu? You haven't hit on him yet.
Mm, I was about to get to that. Okay,
Yeah.
so Yondu is an interesting one. So in order to explain this, the original Guardians of the Galaxy, were based in the future, way in the future. I think I forget for how far, but they're way, way, way in the future. I think the year 3000. I don't know. No, 31st century. Got it. 31st century.
Okay.
So they were based in the future, and it's a lot going on with them. But the original members were a guy named Yondu. A guy named Yondu was an original member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Yondu from the comics, there's a group of people called the Centurions. They're a race of aliens. Do you know
Hmm.
that fin he has on the top of his head?
Right.
That in the movies, it's like a cybernetic implant that lets him control that arrow when he whistles. It flies around, right?
Right.
That's not in the comics at all. In the comics, he has a natural fin. It's like a natural part of his anatomy, and he shoots arrows like a bow and arrow. So I
Oh.
think what the movie did was take his fin and make it a cybernetic implant, and then instead of him shooting a bow and arrow, he just has like a whistle arrow that he uses.
Right.
Which is a shame because those people, the race of Centurions, are actually a really interesting race of people. And so they never really explained this in the movie of his race, and I'm hoping that there's still Centurions around. But the Yondu from the comics is not that big a deal, and they definitely retconned him all over the place when they after the movie came out. They actually they kind of reestablished him and made him a different thing based off of the movie. But the race of Centurions have always been a really cool space race. Like they always look kind of where they have blue skin, but they have a red kind of fin on the top of their heads, and they're warrior people. I was hoping they'd be better represented in the movies, but it is what it is. They can't. The movie couldn't do everything, so
Right. Is he still a Centurion in the retconned version?
that's a good question. Let me see. I think so. Where is it? I had the notes from him. I don't think. I think he is. I think
Yeah.
he is.
Okay.
Let me check.
Well,
Let me check real.
if not, one of our listeners can correct you.
Yes, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
But the Yondu in the movies, far more interesting character than the comics ever had. But again, it's just a little different. So let me see here. Oh yeah, also too, before we get into it, the Ravagers
Hmm.
have never been in the comics as well, ever.
Okay, that's new.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah, so Yondu is in the Marvel comics. It looks like he showed up. Yep, originally he's from 1969, but then so he showed up in the Marvel Comics 1969 in Guardians of the Galaxy, but then he died in February 2020 in his own comic series. So yeah, but
Huh.
I don't know why I missed this. I'm putting in the show notes.
Okay.
You can see what he looks like in the comics.
Right.
Who's
Got anybody
next?
else you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so many. Well, I'm not even close to be done. We've got Thanos, who's in the. We've talked about Thanos quite a bit. I don't have to go over him again. He's in there.
Yeah.
Korath is in the comics. Korath, he looks completely different. He's a Kree. Um, and in the comics, there is no dark skin. There's not a lot of dark skinned people. It's in general because it's when the comics were written. They didn't really care about representation. But the
Right.
Krees do have blue skin and Caucasian skin
He's a
people.
Kree.
Yeah, he's a Kree,
Korath is a
100%.
Kree.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's in Captain Marvel. I don't know if you saw him. Did you watch Captain Marvel? Yeah, so
Yeah.
when we watch Captain Marvel, we'll highlight that. But Captain Marvel happens in the past. So the Korath that we
Right.
see now is a different Korath that we saw before. But yeah, he's in the comics. Not much to say, but he is a Kree. He does work with Ronan, so that's true.
Does he have like cybernetic stuff in his
No,
head?
no,
Okay.
no. Just a regular dude. Then we've got the Nova Corps. The Nova
Yeah.
Corps, basically, if you think about Nova Corps, think of them as space police, just a space police force. Definitely based off of Green Lantern, which is a shame. But like as one Nova Corps officer per planet. But in the comics, the Nova Corps is destroyed during the Annihilation War. The first group that Annihilus and his army kill are the Nova Corps. They go right after them because they're the biggest threat, and they kill them all off except for one person, Richard Rider, and he becomes the only Nova left in the world, in the universe, and he gets all the Nova Core energy. He becomes like super powerful. And if you want some really fun reading, get Nova, the series Nova. It is so much fun to read, well written. The Nova characters completely fleshed out. It's so much fun. Definitely try to read this if you ever want to just have a good weekend. The Nova stories are just fun. There is a lot of speculation that because we saw the Nova Corps in the comics, that at some point we'll get Nova, the actual character. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think maybe Marvels might be thinking that they have Captain Marvel. Why would they need Nova when they have Captain Marvel? Like and he might show up in the Marvels when it comes out. But I don't know. But it's very disappointing how much they've kind of tossed away a lot of the Annihilation stuff because it's a huge storyline. But they might bring some of it back.
With Nova Corps, did they have a Nova Prime for like each base or
I
solar
think they
system
they,
or
they, they
something?
didn't have a formal. There's not a whole bunch on the Nova Core, but I think they did have a Nova Prime. Yeah, they definitely had a Nova Prime. She doesn't look anything like Glenn Close, but she's a woman.
Okay.
But she's killed in the attack.
Mm.
Yeah, the Annihilation series is pretty brutal. Like lots of people die.
Wow, it is the Annihilation series.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
rough. It's pretty
you
rough.
kind of get what you expect there, I guess.
hmm I've already talked about the original Guardians of the Galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
and then the new version. Let's see, the Collector we've talked about previously. Do you remember the prison they went to? The Kiln.
Kiln, yeah.
Yeah, the Kiln. That's in the comics. It's actually a place that holds super super powerful people, not those regular criminals. It does have some of those, but the Kiln's like a super powerful place. And it was built by, we don't know who built it actually, and it's at the edge of space. So it's like at the edge of space where like where the Big Bang happened. And when
Mm.
the Annihilation story occurs, the Annihilation wave, the army of Annihilus, they come through there and they destroy the Kiln. So all those criminals and everybody in it are freed and killed. So that's the first thing that happens is the Kiln's completely destroyed by the Annihilation wave.
Were
Uh,
any of the Guardians of the Galaxy ever kept there?
no,
Okay.
nope. And that,
Did Rocket Raccoon actually do a lot of prison breaks in the comics?
no. But he is considered a genius when it comes to tactics and war. He's not
Yeah.
he's not a genius when it comes to making stuff, but when it comes to war, he's like a genius.
Okay.
And you know what? I think we've got through the list. Yeah,
All
that's it.
right. Time for my questions, and I have some. All right. So at the beginning of the movie, Quill's using this really cool device that reveals, I think, what the planet he is on looked like before everybody was destroyed.
Hmm.
Is that from the comics? Can you tell us anything about that?
No, it's not from the comics.
Okay. Made up for the movie and
Yeah,
prequel.
man, for the movie. Yeah, I don't even know what planet that's on. To be honest with you, and
Yeah.
it is very strange that there's a planet that is uninhabited that is holding an Infinity Stone, and no one's. I guess well, the universe is pretty big, so it makes sense that no one would know where it is.
Yeah. It's got
But
an
this,
orb on it.
yeah, so
There's
it's
an
like I guess this, it's fine. It just seems a little bit too convenient for me. Oh, look, an Infinity Stone.
yeah.
But
Well, at the beginning, it's I like the way actually. Yeah, so I like the way they did it. At the beginning, it's the
just
orb
an
that they're
orb.
talking about. The
Yeah,
orb
yeah, yeah,
looks cool. It looks like a
yeah.
cool thing that would be very valuable all on its own.
Hmm.
No idea what it does. And
No,
then
yeah, yeah,
later
hundred
in the
percent.
movie, it's revealed that it's holding an infinity stone.
Yeah, it's crazy how these things are just spread out throughout the universe, and like it's just like here's this one, here's that one. It's just kind of
Yeah, and
fun.
we talked about in Thor: The Dark World, um, the end the end credits or the post credits scene there. They talk about Infinity Stones. I was like, this must have been the first time I heard of Infinity Stones. That's not true. This movie is definitely the first time I'd heard about Infinity Stones because I don't think I ever even saw the post credit scene for
Yeah,
Thor: The Dark World.
in the Guardians of the Galaxy, they actually explain where they came from and explain, and we see all of them because the collector talks about them. And so this
Right.
movie, because it has Thanos in it and it has a stone, this movie is a clear jumping on point to the Infinity War story.
Yeah.
So without this movie, it wouldn't have made sense. It wouldn't have worked. So yeah, 100%, it's great.
All right. What about Quill's helmet? Is, can you tell us about that? It's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
the helmet that he wears in the comics is very similar to the helmet that he wears in the movies. Yes, the way it works is a little different. Like he's not clicking it and it's forming. He takes it on and off, but the helmet is
Okay.
definitely that's classic. Like the idea of Peter Quill with two space guns and a space helmet. That's the helmet. That's classic. That's classic. He
Okay.
doesn't have the boots. The little space boots aren't there, but the two
Those
guns and
rocket
the
boots were
helmet.
nice.
Yeah, the two guns and the helmet. That's classic. That's iconic for that character. And each one, if you look at all the Guardians, all of them have iconic things like Gamora with the green skin and the swords,
Hmm.
Drax with his knives, Rocket with the guns, Groot being Groot.
Right.
That's all iconic stuff from the comics. They did a really good job connecting all that. The only When it comes to Drax though, Drax is a far better fighter than what we get in the movie. In the comics, he's like awesome. There's a scene where he like fights an entire battalion with just knives by himself to save someone. And we don't get that in the movies. He's kind of a goofy dude, but it is what it is.
All right. So after Star Lord gets the orb, he takes it to Xandar to sell it.
Hmm.
Xandar is, I guess, the home of the Nova Corps.
Hmm.
You tell us about Xandar?
Yeah, it's not much to say about Xandar besides it being like the Nova Corps base. I don't like, and in the movies, it's kind of considered like a place you can hang out, and it has like commerce and shops and places where people live, and they
Hmm.
try to protect it. In the comics, it's a big like just a war. I think it's like actually a mechanical world. Let me see if I can pull up a picture.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say, is it a planet or a city?
it's like a big planet, but it's not a place you would go and hang out. It's like a big base.
Okay,
So it doesn't look anything like what you saw in the movie. Yeah, let me.
not an idyllic, lush, very
No,
clean city. Yeah.
no, 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 no. I'm looking here. Yeah, it's not that fancy at all. Actually, it looks kind of busted. Now that I look at it.
Okay.
And of course, he gets completely destroyed during the Annihilation Wave.
That annihilation gets everything
I wish they'd make a movie on it. They won't.
on Xandar.
No, of the Annihilation War.
Oh, the annihilation.
I
Yeah.
would love to see that. I don't know. But yeah, Xandar's a real place, which is cool.
What can you tell us about this pink species of people that show up throughout this movie?
You know, I don't know who those people are technically. In the comics, there's like all different kinds of races all the time, but there's never really a race that have pink skin that you say, "Oh, it's the so and so's." So I
Hmm.
don't know. Like when it comes to Yondu, the Finn and the blue skin is definitely the Centurions. The Krees have all blue skin, most of them. Thanos looks a certain way, but like these guys, no clue. And I don't. And Kamara's race and Drax's race, Drax in the movie, it was considered like Drax is considered that Drax has a race of people, but in the
Right, and
comics
and
he
his race
doesn't.
of people doesn't get metaphor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so he's
funny.
clearly not an Earthling.
Yeah, but yeah, in the comics he's an Earthling. So there's a lot of different things kind of like bouncing around the comics. They're having some fun, but I couldn't in the comics. There's no connection to those pink people, but I do see them a lot in the movies. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, they're sprinkled throughout
Hmm.
from beginning to end, literally. Okay, all right. So it turns out the orb contains a purple gem, which we find out is an Infinity Stone.
Power Stone,
Uh, which one is it?
power.
Okay, what does the Power Stone do?
So technically the Power Stone. So each stone is connected to a certain part of a universal like power. So the time gem, of course, controls time. So you can, if you have it, if when we watch Doctor Strange, we'll see that he can manipulate time with it. The Reality Stone manipulates reality, so it makes things seem different or different realities. The Power Stone is this raw power, so it can generate power and it can like release power and control power in some way. So whenever someone touches that thing, it explodes because it's releasing a ton of power, right?
Yeah.
And whenever if you watch the Infinity War and Endgame, every time Thanos uses the power gem, it just causes stuff to blow up. So it's just raw power. That's all. That's it. It can't do anything more sophisticated than blow stuff up.
In this movie, it uh, kills the collector's assistant when she touches it.
Yeah,
She blows up and basically destroys the
the entire
collector's
base.
base. Yeah,
Well,
and
the
then
idea is
almost gets Peter Quill.
yeah. Well, the idea is like if you aren't a higher level being, like if you like Ronan can touch it because he's like like a higher level. Like he's stronger and more powerful mentally than most people, so he can touch it. And Thanos, of course, can touch it, and he has the Infinity Gauntlet to help control it. Like
Hmm.
Thor could do it. He could grab the Infinity Stone, the Power Stone, and live. But like Captain America probably couldn't do it. Um, Tony Stark definitely couldn't do it.
Right.
Like so, it's like I like the idea that the movie is already setting up some rules. It's like you have to be a higher level cosmic person to control this thing. And at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill can touch it because he's half alien something, and then the rest of the Guardians are kind of linked toward him. They all grab him to kind of share the load.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's kind of how they were able to deal with the power level. But no, it's pretty good that the movie's already setting up some rules because it knows that we're about to get more movies with more Infinity Stones, so we need some kind of rules to help us understand it.
Right. Ronan took it and slammed it into
Yeah,
his maul.
yeah. So he was able to hold it, but then when he put it into his kind of like big big hammer, it was easier for him to control it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he had a little bit of a sparkly effect while he was holding it, but
Yeah.
nothing near what
His
Peter
eyes
Quill or
his
the
eyes glowed. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was good.
Um, so did when he had it in his maul, did it make him more powerful, or was it
Yeah.
just he was able to use his maul and like command the Power Stone that way?
It made him more powerful and it made his mom more powerful. It just made him more powerful overall. Yeah, so his power levels were way up. He could have went after Thanos and killed him probably.
Hmm,
Yeah, I probably would. It might have been pretty close, but he probably could have done that.
right.
I would have loved to seen that fight. Because when he says, "After I destroy Xandar, I'm coming after you," that I think Thanos could have been killed. They could have done it.
All right,
He's the only person who could have done it.
yeah, we're at a perfect point for my next question, which is let's talk about power levels and the battle with Drax and Ronan in this movie.
Okay.
Does that kind of ring true, or was Drax and Ronan much more closely matched? How's that go down?
The original Drax, the one from the earlier comics, he's actually very muscular. He's very big. The original Drax is actually the scenes. There's actually times where Drax and the Hulk go toe to toe, and the Drax has no problem fighting the Hulk. They're pretty.
Wow.
Yeah, no. Let me try. I'll try to find you a picture. This happened several times, but there was a storyline called the Infinity. It was Infinity Watch, Infinity War, Infinity. What was it called? I forget. But there's a storyline where Drax and Hulk fight each other. I'll try to find you a picture to post into the show notes.
In this movie, he's no match for Ronan.
No. Wow, yes, we got some good ones. So let me give you some images real quick. So this is I'm going to show you this image. Hopefully the link works. So it's in the show notes. And then there's a scene where he fights the Hulk. So to be honest with you, the Drax that we see in the movie is not powerful enough to stop Ronan, not at all. But the Drax that we see in the comics could have done that, no problem.
Okay.
So that scene was actually pretty accurate. But the Drax in the comics that I know and love would never have gone toe to toe with Ronan. He just never would have done that. He would have waited around and stabbed him in the back, or he would have done a number of different things. Like the Drax that I know and love from the Annihilation Wave comics was such a powerful tactical person, and like he was smart and philosophical, super interested. And this Drax is just kind of a joke, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just kind of how it turned out. So
right. My next question was, and I think we've already answered, but my next question was, who can hold the Infinity Stone and why?
So good question. Okay, let's think of it this way. Okay, let's I hate to use dogs, but let's use dogs as an example.
Okay.
Do you have any dogs?
No.
Okay. Do you know what a Chihuahua looks like, right? A little Chihuahua.
Yeah, that's the Taco Bell dog.
Yeah, okay. It's funny that's the reference you make. Okay, that's true. Okay, so let's pretend that everybody on Earth are Chihuahuas. Okay, so if everybody on Earth was a Chihuahua, then we would never know that Chihuahuas are weak because we're all Chihuahuas. So we all would think that we're the best, we're strong,
right.
you know. But then if a Doberman Pinscher showed up on our planet, we'd be like, oh my gosh, that dog's way more powerful than us, right?
Right.
So think of it that way. Like Doberman Pinschers can hold the Infinity Stones because they're just bred. Their bodies are built for it. They're more able to do it. So human beings are just too weak to hold those things. The typical human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
But someone who's like for example, Thor can live in a vacuum of space. You know, like
right.
his lineage is powerful enough that he can hold it because like he's born that way. Like Star-Lord, his race, like in the comics, his people are powerful enough, but in the movie, Ego is a whole planet. He's like a super powerful. So yeah, he can hold Infinity Stone, no problem. And so it just depends on who the person is and where they're from and where they're born, like to see if they can hold it or not. And like Thanos could hold Infinity Gem. Ronan could probably hold it for a limited amount of time. Other people that we've seen in the movies, like Captain America might be able to hold it for a little while, but not long. Asgardians, like Odin could hold the Infinity Stone, no problem, easily.
Loki could probably do it.
Loki could probably hold one. Yeah, so it just depends on who these people are and where they're from, as far as like space god levels. But a normal human being can't do it.
What about the Hulk?
Yeah, well, we see in Endgame that he can hold the Infinity Gauntlet. So Hulk could probably hold an Infinity Stone for a limited amount of time, but it's going to cause him because he's like he's technically a human being. He's just like augmented. So it's at a certain point, it's going to hurt him.
Yeah. Does this kind of these rules or this hold true for the other Infinity Stones? Are any of
The
them
power
easier to hold than the others?
Yeah, the Power Stone is a special stone because it's such raw power.
Hmm.
We've already seen that people can hold the Space Gem. People can hold it because it's in like a little container. It's in a cube. But
The
even then,
Tesseract.
yeah, the test. Or even then, when people touch the Tesseract, it burns their skin because it's so powerful.
Right.
Um, and when we watch Doctor Strange, Doctor Strange never touches it directly. He has it in an amulet that helps him control it.
Hmm.
So I think the general rule should be that human beings should not the radiation levels of an Infinity Stone are too high for a normal human to touch. So I think all of them are just too powerful for most people to deal with. This just radiation wise, it's just too much.
Right. Okay. Those are really all the questions that I had.
I'm
Can
thinking
you think
about
of anything else you want to tell us about?
well, I think we've done a pretty good job. What time is it? Well, it's almost at the hour mark.
It's about where we expected it to be.
Yeah. So the thing I want people to understand about the Guardians of the Galaxy is that this movie's fun, super fun, super funny. We've got some music, we've got dancing. We've got some like cool. Like we got Groot. He's fun to play with. We've got a
Right.
talking raccoon. Fun, fun, fun.
You even
The
get Baby
root.
Groot at the end.
The baby Groot at the end.
Yeah.
The roots of this movie, from the comic angle, are some of the darkest stories you'll ever read.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
the Guardians of the Galaxy comic is based off of a destruction of almost an entire species. Like Annihilation Conquest is about an alien cybernetic group called the Phalanx. I'm not gonna go all into detail because it involves Ultron, and I don't want to get all in this. It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. But eventually, but the Phalanx, they take over the Kree galaxy. They take over almost the entire species of Kree.
Yeah.
And they exterminated many of them. They put many Kree in the ovens and killed them. And so the reason why the Guardians of the Galaxy were formed is to try to help the Kree and to free them. And then when you remember that scene with Groot that he created that ball of wood to protect them when they fell. Remember that?
Yeah.
There's a scene in the Annihilation Conquest where Groot does the same thing, but he does it in order to destroy Power Factory, so they can release some Kree. He kills them. He does that same thing.
Or like rolls into it.
No, he's a big tree and he spreads his limbs all through the factory and like spreads himself all through it, and then it clogs it up and destroys it.
Right.
It's just some dark storytelling. And then the actual Guardians of the Galaxy comic itself was super dark too. But it was good. It was great storytelling.
Big tone change then to the movie.
Well, I think they had to. There's no way this movie would have worked as like a dark as dark as it was.
Right.
And
It'd have to be a DC movie if they were going to do that.
yeah, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
like there's so many cool things. Like, do you remember this? We've talked about this before. The nowhere they go to in the movie.
Right. Yeah, I
Remember
paid a little bit more attention to it this time around.
Yeah, that's a celestial head. We've already talked about that.
Right.
That's in the comics.
And they're mining the materials out of the Celestial's head.
Yeah. So, I mean, so many things from the comics made their way into this movie. And when the movie came out originally, I said, "There's no way anybody's going to want to watch this. Like the stories is so involved, no one's going to know what they're looking at." But I was wrong because they made it fun. They made it fun. The root of the story is a human kid stuck in space. That's it, and that's fun. Like we all want to be that kid. We all want to be Peter Quill. We all want to be kidnapped, sent to space, and then we have to dance around space our entire lives.
Right.
That's our dream.
With one cassette tape.
Yeah, exactly. But that's nowhere near what the comics do.
Right.
And I hope if anyone if anybody watches the Guardians of the Galaxy and thinks, man, I want to get these comics, they will be like, oh my gosh, oh my god, what happened? It's the worst.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, I don't read comics like I used to, but the Annihilation storyline is some of the most fun storytelling. It was such a great comic series. I can't tell you how great the series is. It's so much fun to read. I read it sometimes just for kicks. I probably will read it again.
How many
It's so much
pages
fun to
would you
read.
say this is?
Oh God, hundreds. And
Okay.
there's it's a 3-volume set.
Okay.
So it
Gotcha.
spans multiple different comic books. But you know what? In the show notes, I'll send people links to the actual comics so they can read them if they want.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but so the tone, the tone of the movie is so much different than the tone we get from the comic books, which is fine. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy was a runaway success. It was huge when it came out. People couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah, this is the
Uh,
first Marvel movie that I think is just a ride. It's a
mhm.
ride from beginning to end. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
The
We don't
earlier
get it.
movies, there were some sequences that were a ride. There
Mhm.
was the portal sequence in Thor: to the Dark World. Um, some of the battle sequences in Captain America: the First Avenger. But this movie, just from beginning to end, was a ride. It was
Yeah.
great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a fun trip. Like every second of it's fun, and
Yeah.
the cinematography is great. The acting, for a movie like this is pretty good.
Hmm.
All the characters are interesting. You find your favorites. Like each one does a funny thing.
It's
Like the
hard. It's hard for me to pin down a favorite in this movie.
No, and like there's certain scenes like when Rocket Raccoon is trying to describe the jailbreak, and then Groot just grabs this thing, and then it's like,
I love that.
oh, and
Yeah.
then Quill has to get a leg, but then I have the leg, and he's like, oh, that's so funny. You're like, so like a lot of really funny things, and
Right.
that's the only way this movie works is by making you laugh constantly. Because if you don't laugh, then all of a sudden you're watching this weird space movie that you don't understand.
Hmm.
I'm super curious, and I hope that the Thor: Love and Thunder movie that's coming out soon, it's going to be very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is the guy who did the movies. This is his last one, right? He says he's not going to do any more after these.
Uh,
Oh,
so
he's
he
doing
did this
Guardians of the
one. He
Galaxy
did the
Volume
sequel, and
3.
he's doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, is he? No, no, wait. The guy who's doing Ragnarok is doing Thor: Love and
Yeah,
Love
that's
and
Taika
Thunder.
Waititi,
Yeah. Okay,
and
okay.
this is Pete. Is it Peter Gunn?
Yeah, Peter Gunn. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, James Gunn.
James Gunn. Yes.
Yeah. So again, James Gunn did a great job. Everybody loved this movie. It was great. But
By the
the
way,
things that
James Gunn's brother is in this movie.
yeah, he's a small dude. That's Yondu's partner,
Yondu's
right?
sidekick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kraglin is his name,
Yeah.
and he also played Rocket on set.
Oh.
So he was the
Oh, cool.
on-set Rocket.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So the things, but we lose things because the movie is so like we lose some things. So one thing we lose is I think the Nova and if you watch Infinity War, Thor says that Xandar was destroyed by Thanos when he got the power gem. We never see it, but that's how he got the power gem is he went to Xandar and destroyed it. So we don't know what's going on with Xandar or the Nova Core. So
Mm,
that's going to have to be dealt with at some point.
yeah.
Um, but also too, I think if we were going to have an Annihilation storyline, I'm really curious how they're going to pull that off now with the Guardians of the Galaxy set the way they are. I think it would be really cool if Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the Annihilation War. If Annihilus is the big bad and they have to figure out a way to stop him, that would
Yeah.
be awesome. Awesome with a capital awesome.
Yeah.
But that's some serious stuff. And plus, too, lastly, there's some things about the comics that are just rip-offs. So the Nova Corps is, even though they did a good job with the movie and somewhat in the comics, the Nova Corps is just a rip-off of Green Lanterns. So the Green Lanterns were the first space police, and anything that is a space police besides them is just a rip-off of
And the
Green
Green
Lantern.
Lantern is from DC, and Nova Corps
Yeah,
is from Marvel.
but interestingly enough, DC has not made a proper Green Lantern movie for some really weird reason.
Famously has not made a proper Green Lantern movie.
And yeah, let's just talk about this for. I don't understand why not. That property is ripe for amazing storytelling, and they just haven't done anything with it. When you start looking at DC, they have amazing.
Can you do a really dark
properties.
movie in the Green Lantern?
Dude, they had there was a Sinestro War, the Sinestro Wars that just came out a few years ago. When I say a few years ago, like 20 years ago.
Okay.
But like the Sinestro Wars was a war where the Sinestro, which is he used to be a Green Lantern, but he decided to go rogue. He creates yellow rings. And he starts his own Sinestro Corps group of people, and they try to take over the universe. And so it's Green Lanterns versus Sinestro Corps. It involves Superman, it involves Superboy, it involves so many great characters and storylines. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story, and like it's like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And it rivals actually. You know what? I think the people who wrote the Annihilation storyline too. I gotta check. But it's a great story. DC has great stories. They have great stories. I mean, when it comes to the Flash, a lot of stuff they've done on the TV show is definitely based on the comics, but not all the stuff they've done is done. It's been done correctly. I mean, when we get into the Crisis on Infinite Earth, the TV show did it, but it was kind of weak. And so, not kind of weak, it was weak. So it's not like DC doesn't have properties. They just don't want to spend the money to do anything with them versus Marvel, who are taking the Guardians of the Galaxy, a group of superheroes that no one cared about besides me and a few other dorks in a comic book shop. And all of a sudden they make them global, multi-billion-dollar properties. People are buying Groots, and saying, I'm Groot walking down the street, which is mind-boggling to me because these people never read the comic books.
Yeah.
So it's like DC can't do this. They just refuse to do it. And I don't know why. I boggles my brain. That's it. That's the rant.
All right. We got to finish this up with the post-credit scene.
Yeah. Tell me what happens.
Well, there's a very early post-credit scene where we see Baby Groot dancing, and I'm pretty sure people made toys out of that. But the real post-credit scene is we get to see the Collector in his blown up base, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking sad, and Howard the Duck appears. He was one of the Collector's displays, and Howard the Duck, kind of, I guess, offers the Collector a little bit of solace.
Yep. Howard the Duck is in Marvel Comics. He is canon. He is actually a Marvel Comics character.
I showed my kids the trailer for the Howard the Duck movie after we watched this last night.
What'd they say?
My son was just stuck on that it was a little person in a duck costume. He's like, why did they do that?
You know what his real name is?
Who? Howard the Duck?
Howard the Duck. Yeah, you know what his real name is?
No.
Howard Duckson.
Howard Duckson.
Mm-hmm. And he's from Earth 791021. So
is he from Asgard?
No. It would have been really cool if he was.
Yeah,
but
Duckson,
he is he's from Duck World. If that makes any sense.
Duck World. Okay.
There's a lot with Howard the Duck, dude. Lots.
So he's in Marvel Comics.
Yep. Yep. He was first appeared in a comic called Fear, number 19, and he his first named reveal was in Man Thing number 1, 1974.
Right.
I put it in the chat notes.
Was he ever associated with Guardians of the Galaxy or the Collector?
No. He was associated with some space stuff, but that's it.
Yeah.
No. But did you know that? Did you see that dog?
Yeah. That's the Russian dog, right?
Yep. He's in the Guardians of the Galaxy comics. He actually runs nowhere. He's in charge of it.
The dog does.
Yeah, he's in charge of security. He's actually a telepath. That's how he talks to people.
What's his name?
I forget. Cosmo. No, his name's Cosmo.
Cosmo in the comics. Okay.
Yeah, I'll find that for you too. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good show name.
This movie's a lot of fun, and I love this movie a lot. I just kind of wish that it was a little more serious because like some of the other stuff that I missed from the comic. But other than that, I mean, you can't really complain about this movie. It's great.
All right, so how as a comic book nerd, You're expecting some good stuff in the post-credit scenes. You're expecting a tease for upcoming storylines. How did you like seeing Howard the Duck?
Oh, it was perfect. Are you kidding me? It was
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
Howard the Duck is a great throwback. It's like I remember when I was a kid that Howard the Duck was not a Howard the Duck movie. So no, it's fine. Yeah, I love. Yeah, and it's just funny, and it matches the tone. And the movie has done already so much work to get us ready for the Infinity War that
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to do anything else. We don't need another lead-in. We have tons of them. We have the Jewel. We know we're getting a Guardians of the Galaxy sequel. The Infinity Gems make more sense to us now. This movie's done more than enough work. It doesn't need to do anything else.
Right. I will say the last words that Peter Quill says in this movie is I'm gonna try to quote it. I don't have it written down. He's asking them what they want to do. Do they want to do something good or something bad?
He
And
says a little
Gamora's
of
like,
both,
"Whatever,
right?
we'll do whatever you want to do." He's like, "Well, let's do a bit of both."
That's pretty fun. Yeah.
That had me so excited for the sequel, but they don't do that in the sequel. I
Well,
was hoping
yeah.
the sequel would just be like Guardians of the Galaxy going on shenanigans, like doing a few missions and stuff. I wanted to see them doing some good, some bad, you know.
Well, we don't know what they're doing, and I need to rewatch. I definitely need to do a rewatch of Volume 2,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of comic stuff in there as well, but it's not as much as this one. But we'll have to just
right.
wait and see.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, I was expecting that closing line in this movie is so great, and I guess they just did that in between Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. So
Mm,
maybe we'll get some of that in Volume 3.
maybe.
All right, I think
Well, I think
that's
that's
it for talking about the
yeah,
movie.
yeah. We nailed it. And so next we're doing our weekly Lokis. So of course we're doing that, and then we're doing Black Widow, which I know you're pretty excited about.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Black Widow. Um, so watch that. You should be able to rent it from Disney Plus. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but I'm doing
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, I'm doing it too. It'll be fun.
Are you
It'll
going to
be
go to
worth
the
it.
movie theater or are you going to watch at home?
If it's at the movie theater and it's easy for me to get to, I'll probably go to the movie theater.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely watching it at home with the family. Gonna make a night of it. Popcorn, nachos, maybe some soft drinks, Dr. Pepper.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Wild
Do it
night.
up.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, Mike,
maybe even have some hot dogs.
that's perfect night, dude.
Yeah.
Hot dogs and popcorn. I
Right.
love that. That's salt on salt. It's perfect combo.
Right.
So, Mike, how can they find our podcast?
Well, they can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are found. But what we need them to do is we need them to go to Apple Podcasts, follow us, rate us, and give us a review. It really does help. I know as a listener it doesn't seem like much, but everyone that can do that it'll really help us out. Also, follow us if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you have other podcasting apps that you use every now and then, follow us or subscribe to us there. The more people that we can get following and subscribing to us on all the platforms, the better. And we'll be able to keep doing this more and more, and maybe we'll be able to buy better microphones. So,
That'd be fun.
yeah. So spread the word. Tell your friends.